Got it? So
That's
it
great. I love that.
nerve function. So what does that mean? That means that it actually has the ability for the body to actually now improve nerve function, starts to balance out the way you feel, how you deal with anger, frustration, all those things. All right. So we're going to go into that, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit more. B, give them the number so that they can call in, so that the family can call in today. All right.
You got it, guys. Listen, in order to reach it right here on WURD, guys, you listen. You got your pen and pencil handy. Write this number down if you're in the local area. Give us a call right here at 215-634-8065. That's 215-634-8065. Now, if you're out of the calling area, you can get us right here at 1-866-361-0900. Again, that's 1-866-361-0900. Black Talk Media, WURD Radio, 900 AM, 96.1 FM, right here in Philadelphia.
All right, B.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for that. All right.
Yes, sir. Yes,
now,
sir.
As I was saying, yes, you can get alpha lipoic acid from a lot of the foods. All right. One is, yes, you can get it from animal fat, like the red meats and the organ meats. We don't actually proponents of a lot of heavy meat because of what they're doing to the meat right now. But there are sources and plant foods that you can get this from.
Okay.
One of them is broccoli.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Tomatoes.
Okay.
Spinach has a lot of it. And this is one of my favorites, man. I don't know if tell me if you like this one. How about Brussels sprouts? You know, you like Brussels sprouts?
I love Brussels sprouts, brother.
I love Brussels sprouts,
yes, sir.
man.
Yes, sir.
I love some Brussels sprouts. Well,
I don't
guess
agree
what?
with Brussels sprouts.
You don't like Brussels sprouts?
I don't agree with them.
Is
I'll
it
say
you don't
that.
agree with them, or they don't agree with you?
No, I don't agree with them.
Okay.
Okay, what do they
We
have
love
to
you
do?
too
What do they
much.
have to do to you, man? What do they have to do to
I
you?
can't do it.
All right. Alpha lipoic acid comes in those forms. Now,
Okay.
here's some of the things that it's good for. You remember I mentioned weight loss. You know, there's indication with the studies that it reduces the activity of the enzyme. There's an enzyme in everyone's body that reduces the activity of the enzyme. It's called the AMP. A is in apple, M is in Mary, P is in Paul. That's called an activated protein kinase, or they call it this technical term. Don't get too deep with it, y'all. AMPK.
Okay.
You know what that
AMPK.
means? I just want to break that down so somebody's looking at this saying that's too over my head.
Okay.
It just means that it's actually AMPK is located in the brain's hypothalamus.
Okay.
You know, we talk about that grand triangle. If you're looking at it on TV, you can see we talk about that grand triangle that goes with the pineal gland, the pituitary, and the hypothalamus. So what happens is this actually spins things like the endocrine system. It balances that out. It suppresses that AMPK. You got it? It suppresses it. So that means that the AMPK is what increases your feeling of hunger. So when you know what, I'm hungry all the time. You ever heard anybody say that? Somebody say, I'm hungry all the time.
Yep.
Well, guess what? That's because of that AMPK in the body. It's happening and it's firing off. But guess what? The alpha lipoic suppresses that AMPK activity. Meaning that it's actually helping the body to burn more calories at rest.
Okay.
That means you just sitting around doing nothing.
Just chilling.
You just chilling, and he's losing weight. How about that?
Well.
Man, I'm getting some of that.
Yes, there you already.
Absolutely.
Now, something. Let me ask you a question about it, because you know there are a lot of guys out here. Somewhere I heard something about it having sort of helping guys with erectile dysfunction. Does it also do that?
Well, remember, it deals with nerve system.
Okay.
No, there's other issues with erectile dysfunction that men have. A lot of it is sludge in the system.
Right.
So
Okay.
I try to say we start with men with having them clean the system. You know, a 40-day detox is in order.
Right.
So a lot of that comes from constipation. You know, the prostate issues. All of those are first signs. We do like a checklists of probes that we go through with men when they come through. I do a checklist, and we go through the probing. And guess what? When you start to find out it may be one or two or maybe just one of those problems, when you correct that problem, it corrects their issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's ways of getting this done. All right.
All right.
Callers, B. We got Rick from Germany on. Rick.
How you doing, fellas?
All right, Brooke. How you doing, buddy?
Hello to the brother working the boards.
Peace, brother.
My question for the good doctor: how are they testing for corona in Philadelphia? Are they going into the back of the throat with the Q-tip, or are they still going through the nose and down the throat?
Most of them are through the nose. That is correct. There's two tests that are being, they're about to release right now. They just approved here in the United States 2 additional testing, which allows it for home testing. That's going to happen where the test can start as little as $30 to as high as $50. And so those tests will be involved also in the mouth. They will be in the mouth. Mm-hmm. So that's one that's happening. And then the other one, there is one up the nose and one in the mouth. But these tests also will report. It's mandatory that if you take the test, even at home, it has to be reported. So, yes, Rick, they are still in the nose area, in the cranium, where they stick it up the nose and it's touching. That's a really tough way to find that out. I'd rather do a blood test if you had to find out, as opposed to any thing either in the mouth or the nose. Mm-hmm. So yes, they are still doing that though. What are they doing in Germany?
I had one at the back of the throat, and I had one through the nose, which was quite painful for me. My systems are dried out because of the parasites. My nasal passages were very dry, and that was through the nose was very painful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people that's been very painful, and I've had a lot of stories with that. So yeah, you have to do the research on any procedure that's going to be done. If you get tested, make sure you've done enough research on how the effects and the pros and the cons with that. Some people's the distance in the cranial cavity are shorter than others. And when someone's going up the nose, you really don't have a barometer. It's based on the technique of the person who's performing the procedure. So you got to be careful with that. All right. Thanks, Rick.
You said they can do a blood test to see if you have the disease.
Right. They have a way of doing blood, but it has not been approved yet. They have a way of testing it, and it's a 15-minute test, matter of fact. But yet it has been approved by in the United States. So the CDC has not approved it yet, but it does exist. They talk about that it may have some levels of getting those approved that can actually administer it. So that's where it's getting a lot of bureaucracy behind it. But yes, there is a test that does that. It just has not been approved. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You got it, my friend.
I appreciate you. All right, we got Archer on the line. Is that Archer?
Oh, hello.
Yes, how are you?
I was listening to you about the other 4 acids. You forgot to tell them to take the R form. It's 2 forms. The R form is more absorbable for the body than the other form.
I couldn't. What did you say? I couldn't hear you.
The R form of alpha-4 acid, then the other form of alpha-4 acid that is not more absorbable by the body. Because I take the R form, 250 milligrams of the R form 2 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the NPK, I take that. Then I got the turmeric and I got the black garlic. I take about 32 pills, health pills. Now, what I want to know from you is, I take PQQ and CoQ10. PQQ put more monocrot in yourself. PQQ put more in yourself than. I want to know from you. I'm eating 3 salads a day. I'm trying to do meat, so I'm eating 3 salads a day. I'm drinking a green drink and a protein drink. So I want to know, is that should I do that, or should I eat meat, or do I lose too much weight where I reduce body mass and all that kind of stuff?
No, not at all. Not at all. What you're doing is fine. You take the absorbable form of alpha lipoic acid that works for you. See, everyone's system works different.
Yes.
So it's based on, that's why they come up with different variations, because some people's systems are based on moving faster or slower or balanced in different speeds and rates of speed. So that's okay. That's okay, because remember, this is the rate in which energy burns. So it's trying to get down to those levels. Now, what you're taking with the salads, I just recommend, remember, when you're doing salads, if you want to gain weight, if that's your goal, remember, weight, temperature, and pressure issues start with the thyroid. Okay, that's the thyroid. So when you're starting to build weight, people will think that you have to take protein from meat in order to gain weight. That's not always true. That's not always true. The greatest source of protein comes from the actual plant, because only a plant can grab up into the nitrogen out the air to pull down the aminos to build the building blocks of the cell, which is a plant. And the only reason that the meat or the animal has protein is because the animal eats the plant. Got it? So if you start to eat those vegetables, you can never go wrong eating vegetables. Remember, vegetables stabilize. Fruit stimulates. So when you're starting to really get your weight up, it's about the amino acids. It's about the building blocks. Make sure you're getting organic fruits and vegetables. Got it? Make sure that they're organic. That's my only and major concern, is that when you have foods that have been sprayed or hit with the chlorpyrifos or things like the glyphosates and things like that, it reduces your ability for your body to absorb nutrients into that mitochondria, which is your building blocks of the cells. So you just basically counteracted anything that you took when you took the alpha lipoic acid. You got me? So if you now take the green drink, which we have green drinks, which is the best of the land and the sea, with that alpha lipoic acid, you're going to get a greater effect. It's going to put you straight in. That's what we tend to see. So the salads are good. Continue to do them. But just make sure you wash them very good from the pesticides and the chemicals. That's what we have a problem with right now. Our biggest problem right now is that we're living in the Industrial Revolution, and we're in the middle of it because nobody is going to talk to you about the chemicals that are going on in food. So just keep that in mind, my brother, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. All right.
All right, who else we got on there, Mike? Let me know if there's any. We got Joe on the line. Joe?
Yeah, Dr. Paul.
Yes.
Hey, buddy.
My question is, what's your remedy for if you have hoarse in your voice?
The what?
If you have hoarse in your voice.
If you're hoarse?
If you're hoarse?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's one that, not to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent any disease, just food for the soul family. I always go with what's called stinging nettle.
Yes.
Stinging nettle. Nettle.
What's that again?
Yes.
Nettle?
L-E. L-E. The stinging nettle has its name because it goes back to stinging. If you've ever been out in the wild and see stinging nettle, this thing has a protection for itself. If you were actually able to pick this with your fingers, man, it releases like a natural organic protein like acid, and it actually burns your fingers. So you know exactly when you pick a nettle. But it's excellent for the larynx. Excellent for the larynx. Good for things like if you lost your voice or you're straining the voice and all those things. Are you someone that does like public speaking, or your orator, or your pastor, or someone that uses your voice a lot?
No, I'm not. I'm just concerned about it. I've had it for about a couple of years now.
Is it so? It's hoarseness, right? You said?
Yes.
Okay. Keep in mind also, I tell those that are, that speak a lot, make sure you're not speaking in your make sure you're speaking from your voice box and not your throat. You got it? See, when you project your vocal or your voice, you're supposed to be projecting from what's called the voice box. It's a box, like if you were to take your finger, everybody that's listening, take your finger. You got to be, you watch.
I got you. I got
And you put, no, not down your throat.
All right. Okay.
Take your finger, and it's parallel like this.
Right.
And put right over your Adam's apple. You feel right over your Adam's apple? Everybody feel your Adam's apple.
Yeah.
You feel it?
A little bit of a lump is there.
Across there, just like draw a line right across there.
Mm-hmm.
And we see right there, if you speak, that's your voice box.
Okay.
And from there, that's where you're supposed to project your voice from. Most of the time when we get excited or we're talking or we just overtired or fatigued, that drops down from above the voice box into your throat. That's what causes a hoarse voice all the time. Now, we know this because there was a orator, and he was actually there was this guy named Emmanuel Garcia. Okay, write that down. Emmanuel Garcia.
Okay.
He was actually the first one back in the times of the operatic singers. He was, they didn't have microphones then, so they used to use these things to project the voice. They would build that's why when you go to certain places, like over in Europe and places, they have these big cathedral places because they didn't have microphones. So when you sang, it reverberated around.
Yes.
So you had to really bring it. You had to bring it, Bill. So he was the first one. He had a group called the Fabulous Garcias.
Okay.
Called the Fabulous. He was a Spaniard, by the way. He was a Spaniard.
Okay.
And he said he was called the Fabulous Garcias because he had this technique. He actually stuck a scope down his throat. Yes, he did. He was the first one that took a couple mirrors, hooked it up, and actually looked down to see what his larynx was actually doing.
Wow.
Because some of them, just like my brother right here, Joe, they were having hoarseness and he couldn't figure it out. He says, well, what's going on? So he went down and got the scope, and this is where the actual scope comes right now from that's being used in medicine right now, comes from the early design of Emmanuel Garcia.
Okay.
He found out people were speaking off of the voice box into the throat, causing the hoarseness and damaging the throat. And then they would get things like they would get palate growth and things on the larynx. And this is why people were having of course, like Whitney and Rod, what's his name? Rod Stewart, Mike, all these people that had these surgeries.
Right.
So what he started to do, he started to teach this method called the Emmanuel Garcia technique.
Okay.
I learned this technique because I had a operatic teacher teach this to me. She was from New York, and she had this technique, and it's like weightlifting for the voice. Which is that if you stay on your voice box, you can never lose your voice. That was the guarantee.
I love that. I love that.
Now here's the last thing I want to leave with you, Joe. The first thing you do, I gave you the herb, but you got to practice. You got to practice this technique. And everybody that's listening, if you never want to go hoarse, this is the way you do it. It's just as simple as this. Take that finger, put it right above, right like you doing there, B. Yeah. You see, y'all looking at me on TV. Right. Across right there. And you got to do this one thing. You know what this one thing is?
Nope.
Go like this. You go, That's it.
You got to be kidding. That simple?
That's
now, wait.
it.
Do I feel something move, or is it vibration? What's happening?
You should feel that finger right above Adam's apple.
Right.
You should feel it right there. That's how you would bring it back to center. Off center, you bring it right back to there. And then you would know you're back on course.
That's like massaging your throat.
It's like massaging your throat, but it keeps it right there. Whenever you feel like, when people lose it the most? When you're arguing, when you're yelling at somebody, when you're excited about the game. You fall off the voice box and go into the throat. So Brother, that's what I would recommend for you. There's also a syrup called the Old Indian Wild Cherry Bark Syrup. Has that in there. It has the nettle in there, along with mullein and a lot of other ones that soothe the throat. So that can help you right there. All right?
Dr. Paul, thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, brother. I appreciate you, man. I know that was a long way, B, but I had to explain that one because I think that can help somebody.
Look, you just helped me, brother. Yeah, what can I tell you? I be trying to croon. I get all caught up.
And guess what, man? You know, they call the Fabulous Garcias because everything you say is right in. It's like sitting on.
Yes.
You know, and I practiced this technique for a long time, man, when you're singing.
My wife's going to get upset with you, War, because I'm going to be around the house.
Yeah, you crank it up. You go,
yes, sir, buddy.
That's how you bring it back.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now let's go back to our alpha lipoic acid. Okay. And remember, Mike, if you got anything, let me know, okay? All right. Let's see. Where was I? I was talking about how the AMPK activity increases the number of calories, so it actually helps you burn at rest states. Got it? So it burns at rest states. Now, how does this work with diabetes? How does this work with diabetes? Oh yeah, Mike is giving me. Mike said we got to take a quick commercial. He got me, Bill. He got me.
That'll teach you to hesitate.
He's sending texts from all different places. Mike said, so Mike, we will take a
have to see it eventually.
Yeah. This is Dr. Paul and Bill 1L Morgan. This is the Green Hour. We'll be right back.
Ambition. You can't measure it, configure it, or bottle it up. But when you have it, you know it. It's that little voice in your head that says, you're not done. You want more. At WGU, we know all about ambition. We're a university that is rewriting the rules of higher education, making it more accessible, affordable, and student-focused than it's ever been. Because we know you won't rest until you reach your goals. Neither will we. WGU. Ambition never rests. Apply now at wgu.edu.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
Pollock Herbs and Vitamin Center, 5925 North Broad Street. Open Monday through Saturdays. 20% off this week, Saturday, January 30th through February 5th. Dr. Willer's Water, 8-ounce and 16-ounce. Ginger, Living Bitters, Detox, and Energy Beverage. Raw goji berries, 8-ounce and 16-ounce. That's right, yours, 20% off. Also, they carry yours truly, Dr. Paul's Green Drink, Colon Cleanse, and Eliminator. That's Pollock Herbs and Vitamin Center, 5925 North Broad Street, 215-549-4372. That's 215-549-4372.
Keeping you informed. As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week. Monday, February 1st, at 2 locations, SEPTA of 69th Street, 6901 Market Street in Upper Darby from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. and then at noon at Salem Baptist Church, 2741 Woodland Road in Abington. And Tuesday, February 2nd, 12 noon till 8 p.m. at Christian Stronghold Baptist Church, 4701 Lancaster Avenue in Philadelphia. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Wayne Avenue Health Food, located at 5007 Wayne Avenue, has been in business for 29 years. Wayne Avenue Health Food is a one-stop shop for all of your quality vitamins, herbs, and information with exceptional, friendly, experienced service. Wayne Avenue Health Food is open 7 days a week and delivers in the Philadelphia area and ships all over the country. For more information, call 267-338-6488.
Do you have big goals? Need a grant or loan for your business in 2021? Get started and register now for the Business Center's online business plan course. In the 12-week business plan course, you will create a business plan and learn how to finance your business, use social media as a marketing tool, identify grants and loans for funding, and more. You can even receive a loan of $10,000 or more based on your completed business plan. Register now. Visit TheBizCTR.com today to register for the course and secure your online seat. Financial aid and one-on-one business coaching options are available. Visit TheBizCTR.com for more information and to register for the online business plan course today. Secure your online seat now. The new start date is February 1st. WURD members get 10% off the business plan course. Just use code WURD10 at checkout.
Thinking about retirement? Make sure a My Social Security account is a part of your plan. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can find out if you're eligible to receive benefits, compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates, view spousal benefit estimates, and more. Plan for your future. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
You're listening to The Green Hour, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, Black Talk Media.
All right, and we are back. This is Dr. Paul and Bill 1L Morgan. This is The Green Hour, and today we're talking about this thing called alpha lipoic acid.
There we go.
Alpha lipoic acid. One of the greatest antioxidants that you could use that helps the body get rid of all that bad junk in the system. But it also, you know, we talked about, before we left, how alpha lipoic acid is good for, it's both water and fat soluble. So it works with every cell in your body, including the tissue in the body. So that works as a plus on both sides. It actually reduces not only lowers blood sugar levels, but it reduces inflammation in the body. It also slows the skin aging, baby. I told you that.
I told you, I'm loving that.
Start tightening it up, man. Tighten it up. And it also improves nerve function.
Okay.
So I was actually going into diabetes, how, you know, more than over 400 million adults worldwide are affected by diabetes. That's an incredible number. You know, they know that everyone is actually exposed to too much sugar. That's why they're, you know, everything. If you want anything, well, then the manufacturers know you can't sell it unless it's got some sugar in it.
I know that's right.
And that's why you have to have something of a good antioxidant to break this stuff down. Number one, know that you should stay away from refined sugars, refined sugar, refined salt, refined oils. But the main thing is, what's refined means they strip the minerals out of it, which means there's nothing left. So that's where things like alpha lipoic comes in and cleans up that debris that's left over from too much refined foods. So that's why it makes this thing good for diabetes.
Okay, now when you say there's nothing left, what do you mean by that?
Well, it means that the debris. See, cellular debris that's left on, they call them free radicals.
Right, okay.
And the free radicals that are left over are usually unprocessed because the body couldn't break them down. So they just sit around just saying, Bill, what we going to do?
Oh, so it's just junk. It's just trash.
We're just going to just trash.
It's just trash left in your system.
Somebody got to get in here and clean this mess up.
Okay.
That's the alpha lipoic.
Okay. All right. You got to talk to so young people know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so you young folks know what I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. Keep on. Keep going.
Mike, give me a hand if you get somebody calls, okay? All right. All right. Now, alpha lipoic acid, how does it deal with diabetes? Goes in because, you know, a lot of people are dealing with things like vision loss. And, of course, with diabetes also deals with heart disease and also kidney failure.
Right.
So that's where alpha lipoic comes in, family. It aids in starting to regenerate a lot of those organ activities that are congested, like the heart, the kidneys, and also the eyes, you know, and helping the eyes get the clarity back. Has everything to do with opening up those areas. So alpha lipoic does that. It actually starts to now clean the system and the eyes. Wow, that's awesome, man. We got Marva on the line. Marva?
Hi, Dr. Paul. Thanks for taking my call. And Bill and Mike, I want to thank you. And to all the callers out there that calls in with those fantastic questions. But I called because, Dr. Paul, you saved my life when I ran into you at the herbal store and you told me to get the aloe vera gel. Because I was having a problem after I had surgery. They told me to use the Miralax and milk of magnesia. But I was all that, and it was when I take pain medicine, it slowed me down. But when I ran into you, God must have had that fix. And a shout out to Paula, because she wanted to go to the herbal store to get their drink, and I hadn't been out in a month. She said, "Come on and ride with me to the store." And as you showed me, I had to get, even though it tastes horrible when I first tried it. It made me feel so good, like Wonder Woman now. So I can leap up the tall building.
I know that's right. Don't leap up the tall building. We need you now, Marva.
Yeah, we need you now, Marva.
Well, I'm going to hang up, but do I continue to take this up now? Because I'm going to have to get another bottle. I started doing 2 ounces, and I started mixing it with a little bit of that apple, unfiltered apple juice, just a little bit. Because when I take it plain, it tastes terrible. Let me tell you, you don't have to take it but one time. You go every time you eat. But when I got you. I got you. But that's about it. I want to know how long to continue taking it. And I'm going to hang up and listen. And God bless all the callers out there in the family radio. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva. I appreciate you. Wow, Marvin has an incredible. That's a great testimony.
That's a great testimony, indeed.
And then some folks, I was coming in the store. I was at, I think it was Wayne Avenue, and I was coming in, and she told me the story. She said, I haven't been out in a month, and then when I come out, here you are. She said, this has got to be a God said. So what do I need to do? Oh, she told me about her situation where she was having indigestion problems and a lot of digestion, and they told her to take all this stuff. And I said, well, this is not the diagnose, treat, cure, prevent disease, just food for the soul. Why don't you just grab some aloe vera gel? Aloe vera gel starts to coat the lining of the stomach, esophagus, all the way down to the intestines, and now creates a more and better environment to balance that derma, which is all that digestive enzyme, deals with polyps, anything that's acid, too much acid in the intestines and the lining of the intestines. So there you go. You see it right there being incredible testimony, man. She said she's leaping over walls now.
Yes.
She's a Wonder Woman now. So I'm just glad that she's doing that. What you can do is, family, if you're listening, if you have digestive issues, that's just one of many things that can help you. And as a before you go in to take your eat your food. It's a preparatory. So you would take that usually on an empty stomach, and usually would take 2 to 3, sometimes 2 to 3 tablespoons on an empty stomach, but don't eat for 30 minutes. That's the key. Don't eat for 30 minutes.
Listen to that, guys. Don't eat.
Right. After you waited for 30 minutes, then you eat. And then you will see your digestive issues start to balance out. Because remember, Doctrine of Signatures says what? As God puts whatever it grows in an area, it's good for you. So when you deal with things that grow into hot areas like the deserts and has a lot of sun, that's good for skin, for dealing with issues with skin. That's why aloe vera is good for also a protection from exposures to ultraviolet lights or dangerous light. And it's also it's also used for, when people go out and dealing with a hot sun, you put that aloe vera on you, protect the sun. But guess what? Skin on the outside, skin on the inside. So now it protects on the inside also and regenerates that lining of the gut. Prepare it. Now you're back to normal.
No, that's what's up. See, that's
what's up, man. That's
indeed. Okay, we got Z on the line too, Dr. Paul.
All right, Z.
Hi, Dr. Paul. I'm well. How are you?
All right, doing well.
All right. My question is, what can you do about, clubfoot, hands, and feet?
What was that?
What can you do about clubfoot, hands, and feet? Someone who was born with club feet and hands.
Yeah, you have to take it on a per situation basis on how, you would have to look at the x-rays on how the development of that area, the club feet or the club hands, and then you would have to address that's a structural issue. So what happens is we would have to have that person come in, and then we would have to instruct on further what you can do. Whenever something like that, that's considered a structural issue where are they in pain or anything like that? Any pain at all?
Well, they didn't say anything about any pain, or anything.
Right. So it's almost, it's something they were born with. So
right, yeah, they do exercise, but
Right. Yeah, we would have to take that. That's based on a per person basis.
Yeah.
You got to find out what's going on. We would look at x-rays. We would look at what's going on there. We increase the bone density on those issues, and that's things that we deal with, like the coral calcium things that we do to help them develop that. But that's actually a deformity. So what's happening with that, you would have to get into other options that they may have, but each person's situation may lend more opportunities than the other. So that's why I would have to take a look at the full spectrum of that, all right, before we get into that. All right?
So thank you.
All right, Zay, thanks for calling in. We got Stephanie.
Okay, all right. Stephanie? We got Stephanie on the line. Yeah, Stephanie?
Hello, how you doing?
Hey, Stephanie.
Okay. This alpha lipoic acid, is it good for the onset of dementia or Alzheimer's?
It can help. It can help because definitely it gets into memory loss. It gets into memory loss. Yes, it does. It slows the memory process. And it actually is dealing with, when you have dementia and things like that, that's actually deals with oxidative stress. And that's what deals with alpha lipoic acid, helps to be as a powerful antioxidant. It slows that progression, which is something that Alzheimer's actually is actually high on. Alzheimer's also acid food diet. Stay off the acid foods, refined salt, refined oils. But yes, it is good, something that we use it for that. It can be used for Alzheimer's, dementia, all of those. Any of the anti-inflammatories are good at that. Okay? So keep that in mind, all right?
Thank you, and y'all have a blessed one.
Thanks so much, Stephanie, for calling in. We got Rosalind.
Was that Rosalind?
Rosalind, yes.
Praise the Lord, everyone. Dr. Paul, I'm having a problem. I'm drinking a gallon of water. All my food is organic. But my nurse happened to rub me down. I'm getting Charlie horses in my legs, in my hips, and it's getting bad. So what do I do for that?
Okay. Now, when you're saying you're in bed, are you bedbound? Is that what you said?
No, I'm not bedridden.
Okay, good.
To see you.
Right. That's what I thought. So if you're doing that, Charlie horses, and when you have any type of Charlie horses, or you're like in the middle of the night, you get like a cramp, in the calf or the leg.
Or jump up and go run.
Jump up and just...
I be doing all that, but then I can't move sometimes.
Yeah, but let me tell you why. That's usually either one of the two, potassium or magnesium deficiency.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
eat
that
a lot
is.
of banana.
But you got to ask what kind of banana.
There you go.
I get organic food. Isn't that what you told me to do?
Yes, but that don't always mean that you're getting the proper amount of magnesium,
there you go,
potassium from the banana. You remember, that's a good source of it, but do you need enough for you is the question.
Yes.
That's why we go back to the green drinks. Are you doing the green drinks?
No, I never did the green drink.
Oh, there you go. See, remember, one of the highest forms of the magnesium and potassium comes from that green drink. That green drink that I have, that's why I put it together. Land and Sea stops the deal with. See, when you at night, you're actually in the state of.
This happens during the daytime. Sometimes my bed is a massage, so I don't have that problem.
It's sometimes
no. It can happen. It can happen anytime. But I'm telling you, it has a lot to do with deficiency. See, if your muscles don't have a proper amount of magnesium, you can't break down. They're going to start to atrophy. They're going to actually start to grip up. And that's what's happening. There's a deficiency. There's a nutritional deficiency there. That's why they're tightening up. You got it? So that's why you got to also stretch. Are you doing exercises?
I'm doing exercise 3-4 times a day and some.
Okay, now how much stretching are you doing in that area?
Pardon me?
Okay, when you exercise, you also have to do a lot of stretching. Start up and cool down. Okay, start up and cool down. So when you exercise, it's a pre-stretch, exercise, cool down. That's why when you're doing on the bike, if you ever see on the bike, it'll start off with, when you're starting, whether on a treadmill or a bike, it'll start you off saying, all right, you're going to get a pre-warm up, and then you go into your exercise program, and then you have a cool down. You got it? But you got to you need to get more magnesium, and I say get it from areas of proteins and magnesium and potassium from greens. You got it? That's where the green drink comes in. So you got to get on that green drink.
He delivers my stuff for me on Wayne Avenue.
Okay, so you need to jump on it. All right?
Tell him to give me a green drink.
Get your green drink, girl. That's right.
Okay. I got you, girl, Dr. Paul. God bless you and your family and everybody become a member. Thank you.
All right, you got it. All right.
Big, I got one more thing that this alpha lipoic acid is good for, because we got to get ready to go. And I know Mike is about to give me the sign. He's about to throw the flag up on me, ain't you, Mike?
I know that's right. It's about that time.
I knew it. All right, the last thing is it's dealing with the nerve function. Alpha lipoic promotes healthy nerve function.
Yes.
So things like when people have issues like carpal tunnel, or they might have a pinched nerve. We know that a pinched nerve comes from contraction, which means you may have to see a chiropractor to make sure you have that adjusted so that you can actually take the pressure off of there. Or you may have a teeter machine, which an inversion table or something. But this actually, the alpha lipoic acid helps to deal with things like carpal tunnel syndrome, issues like pinched nerve, anything like numbness or tingling in the fingertips and hands and the feet, things like that. So it also reduces that inflammation that causes in those areas, which is another form of neuropathy. You got it? Okay. Which happens in a lot of diabetes. B, that's it. We got to go. I'm not going. Yes. Family, this has been a pleasure. I hope everyone that is listening, thank you to the callers.
As always.
If you want to get a hold of me, you can always call me at 215-779-7355. That's 215-779-7355. Or you can call me 1-877-377-2854. That's 1-877-377-2854, or on the website at www.drpaulurge.com. Hey, family, y'all got to join this Wednesday family tree.
Yeah, buddy.
See, we are knocking it out the house, man.
We're having cash fun.
Loaded up, man.
Yes.
If you want to join us for the family tree, just sign up on my website. Put your name and your email. I'll send you a personal invitation, and you'll get all the Zoom information. Free Zoom call, family. And we are knocking it out, man.
That's right.
Coming in there, B.
Yes.
Hey, man. And hey, I want to...
getting big about a week, family.
Absolutely. So lastly, I want to say thank you to our producers, Michael Ledbetter, Laura Lomax, our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax-Reese, and the entire Lomax family. Hey, Mrs. Beverly Lomax, thank you so much. We love you. And Big B.
Buddy. Yes, sir.
Mike sir. Thank you, man. I appreciate both of y'all. And remember, family, if you are breathing,
you got a shot. There you go.
Your child deserves to be educated in a safe and supportive learning environment. Southwest Leadership Academy Charter School, a tuition-free public school, is accepting applications for the 2021-2022 school year. SLAC's 2 locations offer single-gender classrooms in a dual-gender environment. Kindergarten and first-grade classrooms have a 15-to-1 student-teacher ratio. Students learn music, art, and fitness. Southwest Leadership educates the whole child, preparing students to become leaders. slacks-phila.org, Instagram at Southwest Leadership Academy, or email info@slacks-phila.org.
Jobs,
Entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources,
and financial literacy.
livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Independent Black Media.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on WURD Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station. You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Wake up with WURD.
He cried, his voice quivered. Nobody repents better than a politician who's been caught. I think basically they're just annoyed that they didn't say it first. I sat down on a train. Next thing I know, I'm standing here in the lobby of the Trump Plaza. How did I get here? I don't know. Clearly there was an endorsement that was going to happen that day.
And now, Jay McCallum, only on Wake Up with WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD, and I want to welcome you back to Wake Up with WURD. Joining us now, of course, is Jay McCallum. Jay McCallum is a veteran political consultant, held senior positions in both the Rendell and Street administrations. His work has been published in the Philadelphia Inquirer, Philadelphia Magazine, and the Chestnut Hill Local. He brings deep knowledge of politics and does so from an African-American perspective. Jay, good morning.
Good morning, Solomon. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. I feel like it's the day after Christmas. You know, I still got the wrappings under the tree, and it's just a delightful mood today. Waking up in a world where Trump does not matter.
Yeah. They took away all his. You're off of Twitter. You're off of Facebook. You're off of Instagram. Just go away. You know what I mean?
You're off the payroll.
Yeah.
You're off the payroll too.
Yeah. So he went back to Florida, and one of the things that happened that was interesting for me in terms of watching what happened with them yesterday when they got off that plane in Florida, right? So apparently, some people were there to greet them, and Donald Trump stops and he waves at the people. Melania just kept walking. She like, I ain't got to do this no more, man.
Right. No more faking it. Though he did before they left D.C., he managed to get her to hold his hand for a couple of seconds. Now, I thought, all right, she was just having mercy on him,
Yeah, he having a tough day, so I'll hold his hand for a second, but don't think, don't think this changes anything. Because when we get off this plane, she changed her clothes and everything, Jay. She got off the plane, she had on a different dress. She just kept walking like, I ain't waving at these people, man.
Oh, it's party time for her. She can do what she wants when she wants now. It's party time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a whole lot going on, man. I mean, I think that we got to talk about Joe Biden, because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have now been inaugurated as president and vice president, respectively. Now they're faced with trying to unite a nation that's deeply divided, Jay. How do they do it?
Solomon, I'm not sure they can. I watched a very conservative news channel last night, a channel called Newsmax, and they were already tearing into Biden. The commentator called him a leftist who was bent on dividing the country. He was called cowardly for having so many soldiers on hand. And Newsmax is in a ratings war with Fox News, so they're trying to out-Fox Fox by going even further to the extreme right And that's only going to push Republicans further and further to the right. And speaking of Fox News, Senator Rand Paul was on there last night, and he laid into Biden for insinuating that Republicans are racist. You know, one new member of Congress said he'd be happy to leave the Republican Party and join the Trump Party if he happens to form one. And over, I forget the exact number, but well over 100 members of the House voted against certifying Biden's election. You can't unify folks who don't want to unify. And Republicans have gone, at this point, to the dark side of the moon, and they're staying there. Trump still has 82% favorable rating within the Republican Party. 82% favorable. So that tells Republican office holders that Trumpism is still the way to go. Acting like barking dogs is working for them. Their base still thinks Biden stole the election, and they aren't going to get in the way of that. I noticed that the Republican governor of Texas says that he plans to file what he calls a truckload of lawsuits against the federal government now that Biden has taken the oath. A Republican Senator, Hawley, is blocking confirmation of Biden's nominee to head Homeland Security. So the battle has already started. It's good politics for Biden to talk about unity. The media will love it, but he better know in his heart that he's in for the fight of his life. Since he can't join them, he better beat them. He's got to make sure congressional Democrats are unified. That's his real job, unifying the Democrats. We hold majority in both houses, and he doesn't need Republicans. One thing he will need is a big, juicy, trillion-dollar infrastructure bill so he can bribe his fellow Democrats with public work projects like bridges to nowhere and that sort of stuff. Because no Democrat is going to support Biden just so they can get a warm feeling inside. This is politics. But he already knows that and is prepared. I hope. Solomon, I really like and I respect Joe Biden, but he had better not waste his time extending his hand to folks who plan to spit in his palm.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jay. And I kind of talked about some of that, earlier in the show about how he's got this really slim majority in the Senate, and he's going to have to offer those.
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
In order for them to support his agenda, he's going to have to offer them whatever it is they need for their state, whatever it is they need to make them look good back home in order for them to support his agenda. There's going to have to be some horse trading going on, and I know Joe Biden is the man for that. He knows how the Senate works. He knows what these legislators want because he was a senator for years. So he knows. The question is he willing to do it? This whole we're going to negotiate with the Republican stuff, they're not trying to negotiate with you. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jay. And he should have learned that from the Obama administration.
Yeah. In terms of horse trading, there's this U.S. Senator named Joe Manchin. He's darn near a Republican, but he calls himself a Democrat. He's from one of the Virginias, West or whatever Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia. And he is no Democrat. And so if he's going to go along with Joe Biden, he's got to get something. You got to give him a bridge. You got to give him a tunnel. You got to give him some dredging of some rivers. You got to give him something to make good. You got to bribe him. And so Joe better have some money in his pocket. He's got to raise taxes on the rich. He's got to have some money to throw around. I mean, he's got to treat this like Friday night, just got paid, and he's got to spread it around. So that's how he wins. That's how he gets the Democrats in line behind him. I mean, yesterday was a wonderful day, but that mood's only going to last a little while for hardened politicians who slug it out on a daily basis back home. So, Joe's smart. He's experienced, but I'm hoping he's not too naive. He seems like such a good guy,
Yeah.
And you got to be a little bit of a rattlesnake, like Lyndon Johnson was, like FDR was. You got to be a little bit of a rattlesnake, and I hope Joe has that in him.
Yeah, I think his experience is going to pay off if he uses it. Now, doggone well, based on your experience in the Obama administration, what the Republicans are going to try to do. I think the biggest mistake I saw Obama make was to try to negotiate with the Republicans on the health care bill when you had the votes. Just ram it through. That's what they would do. Just do it, man. Just, you know it's the right thing to do. You know these people need this insurance. Just pass it. You have the votes. Don't try to make it they're trying to harm you. They're not trying to help you. And the longer you negotiate with them, the more time you give them to get their message across that what you are doing is wrong, even though it's right. It ain't no negotiation, Jay. Don't negotiate.
Right. Joe has to treat his presidency like it's his first day in prison.
Yeah.
He's got to find some big son of a gun and clean his clock and get some respect. You know, nobody ever was afraid of Obama. You know, he always was conciliatory. He was always the law professor. Nobody was ever afraid of him, despite him having more power than any other politician in the land. He didn't want people to be afraid of him, which sacrificed a good amount of his power. People have to fear you. And a little bit of fear in the name of a good cause is not wrong. And I think he sold himself short for that. And Joe was watching it close up. And he's got some smart advisors. You know, his speech was a brilliant production yesterday.
Absolutely.
And that was a team effort. So, you know, I respect this team and I respect him, but he's got to have an edge to him. You know, I respect the fact that he started the day, you know, worshiping. God bless him. You know, but you better come out of that day, fight it. And while you were worshiping, you better be praying for strength and a little bit of an edge.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And I want to talk about, you know, how he goes about convincing these senators, especially. I think, you know, in the House, you got a guy like Joe Manchin, and you've got some other guys who are, you know, conservatives, but are Democrats, blue dog Democrats, they call them. You know, what do you think he needs to give these guys in order to make sure that he keeps their votes?
Well, he's got to put them in a position where they don't lose the way they got there. Like you've got, say, in our case, Bob Casey, a Democratic senator from Pennsylvania, who got to the Senate because of his blue-collar support. He opposes abortion. He was kind of very quiet, as a matter of fact, on Black Lives Matter. You know, he never really gets out there and alienates his white male supporters.
Right.
And so when he comes at Bob Casey for his vote, he's got to leave him a way to look good with white males, you know, because that's how Bob Casey wrote his ticket to be a U.S. senator. So, and in fact, his dad even addressed the Republican convention some years ago, and his dad was a Democratic governor of the state. So he's built his career on that, and there are a lot of Democrats who built their career on being lukewarm Democrats, on being a little bit racist, a little bit sexist, and just decent enough to attract some black votes, just promising enough to get us in their camp too. You know, he goes out and works for them. So he's got to navigate around that, and that's where maybe that's where his ability to deal one-on-one with senators will come in handy, where he can sense where they're coming from, where he understands their problems back home. Bob Casey and Joe Manchin might vote for X, but they won't vote for Y. And maybe Joe Biden goes to Lisa Murkowski, the Republican senator from Alaska, who seems like she's going to vote for to convict Trump in the trial. So he's got to find out who on the Republican side he can sweet talk and bribe also, because he's got such a thin majority in the Senate. It's barely a majority. So some of these votes are going to be a little bit Republican, a little bit Democrat, but in all cases, he's going to have to trade and give them something for everything he gets from them.
There you go. That is Jay McCallum. On the other side, we'll continue. It's Blackball Politics this morning on WURD with Jay McCallum. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Back by popular demand.
It's Wake Up with WURD, hosted by Solomon Jones. Right now on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM.
And 900 AM WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD. We have been behind the scenes trying to fix my sound. We finally figured it out. Kawesa, the genius that she is, was like, check the Skype settings. And I checked them, and I think that did it. So thank you, Kawesa. We appreciate you.
No problem. And shout out to Troy, too, for helping out also.
Yep. Troy sent us the picture like, all right, look, this is what you need to do with your board. You know what I mean? So thank you, Troy. We appreciate you and all of that. And so I think we are finally back to normal, man. Thank God. Y'all saw me do a little shout. If you're on Facebook, you saw me do a little shout. Like, praise God. You know what I mean? We had to do a little shout. So we appreciate that. And now we could get back to Jay McCalla, and we're talking about what has to happen in the Biden administration, man, as we are dealing with this foolishness. But in order to talk about Biden, we got to talk about Trump. With Trump gone, Republicans are now, Jay, kind of fighting amongst themselves. McConnell finally got honest and said Trump provoked the rioters. Lindsey Graham attacked McConnell, claiming McConnell is wrong about Trump. And Mike Pence defied Trump and attended Biden's inauguration. Where does the GOP go from here, Jay?
Well, you know, Republicans have been spreading hatred for so long, they've almost run out of new people to hate. That's the condition they're in today. They impeached Bill Clinton, and they practically burned Hillary at the stake over Benghazi. And, of course, they hated our lovely Barack Obama. Poor Mitch McConnell is trying to put some of the genie back in the bottle, but it's too late. Over the last 10 or 15 years, Republicans have become like a gang of hungry alley cats, and now they've crossed over to treason. Most still haven't conceded that Biden won fair and square, and almost none of them have condemned the coup attempt of 2 weeks ago. The freaks aren't on the fringe anymore. Liz Cheney, she's the chair of the Republican caucus in the House. She's a super conservative. Her father was the super conservative Dick Cheney. But she voted to impeach Trump. Now she's got a Republican challenger who's going to try to run her out of Congress. That's how it works. Even super conservatives aren't conservative enough. Right now, I predict a civil war amongst Republicans as crazy groups like QAnon and others flex their muscles. Things have changed. Just being racist isn't enough anymore. You also have to be a fascist. But as the crazies squeeze out the regular Republicans, I think the stage is set for an electoral showdown with blacks. We've discovered the power of our vote like never before in history. And more, we're going to be confronted with rabid dogs on the Republican ballot. They're getting crazier and meaner. Eventually, I believe black folks will be the only thing standing in the way of a fascist takeover of America, the black vote. Solomon, as Republicans get Trumpier and Trumpier, we may just be the only voting bloc that can save this country from going under in the hands of treasonous Republicans. I think we are that safety valve. We're the only group that's united enough to stand up to them. So I think we have to be prepared for that as Republicans get nastier, uglier, and even more obnoxious than they were under Trump.
No, I think you're right. I think it's a race to the bottom for Republicans, where they are, you know, in the primary, you're only dealing with Republican voters. And so the crazier you are, the more likely you are to win in that primary. And you might not win in the general, but at least you knock that person out of contention who's not racist enough, who's not fascist enough, who's not mean enough, you know, for your base. And I think that's a mistake. But, you know, hey, if that's what they want to do, you know, go ahead. But if you can't win in general elections, I guess on a national scale, then what good is it that you won in the primary?
Yeah, as you say, a race to the bottom. And when you get there, there's the bottom. You can't go any further. And you're going to have to make some sort of a dramatic U-turn. Remember Reagan and how softly racist he was. You know, he would tell the stories about the big buck getting food stamps, and he talked about the welfare queen. And then you get George W. Bush, who refused to pass a hate crimes bill in Texas when he was governor, even after a noble black man, James Byrd, was drugged to death behind a pickup truck. Bush wouldn't make that a crime. So slowly but surely and steadily, they've become more and more racist. And so how do you out-racist the last racist? And so at a point, they're going to hit a steel wall, and they're going to have to turn around and come back. I don't see that yet. Only life and living teaches you that. And they're so drunk with power right now. They're so drunk with attention. All they want to be is the most racist Republican. And when they get the nomination of the Republican Party, you know, in their city or their state, they figure they'll win the general by just suppressing the black vote. We'll dump a lot of black folks off the voter rolls. We'll close polling places in black neighborhoods. So racism will get them to the nomination of their party, and they're counting on racism to win in the general election, which they've been using pretty effectively down there. The governor of Florida beat Andrew Gillum, who was the black candidate. He was overtly racist. What was the slogan running against a black man? He said, "Don't monkey around." You know, that was pretty blatant. And the governor of Georgia, Kemp, he beat Stacey Abrams, not fair and square. He beat her by rigging the rules, by booting black folks off the voting rolls, including polling places. So they're figuring, I'll out-racist my neighbor, and then when I get into the general election, I'll just steal it. And that's not a political party. They don't have ideas about how Americans can better their lives. They just want power, and they're willing to lie for it. They're willing to steal it. And at a point, they're going to have to compete in the marketplace and talk about, okay, Mr. Working Man, Mr. Working Woman, here's how I can improve your life. Here's how I can put more food on your table. Here's how I can...
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Talk like that since Dwight Eisenhower. And so they've got to get a whole new act, and I don't think they're prepared for it.
We'll see. Let's talk about Joe Biden, though, because yesterday he issued a number of executive orders on day one, mandating masks on federal property, rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, repealing the Muslim travel ban, canceling Trump's directive to exclude non-citizens from the census, which means a lot in terms of money that goes to the various congressional districts and representation. But what does Biden have to get done right now while he has momentum?
Yeah, he's got, it's a good question because everything is a matter of timing. Stuff you can get done today, you might not be able to get done tomorrow, so make hay while the sun shines. You know, three things come to mind. First, he's got to get his stimulus package passed so folks can eat. Issue those $1,400 checks by the end of January. You know, maybe the Senate and maybe the House. I know the House, Nancy Pelosi is always ready to go, so it's just a matter of getting it through the Senate. But if he acts this week or early next week, there's a good chance he can get those checks in the mail by the end of January. They got them out pretty quick this time. So that's something I think he needs to do and develop faith, because big businesses like Walmart, they're still open. But tons of bars and coffee shops and small restaurants, they've closed down as tight as a drum. Another thing Joe needs to do is something I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, and that is infrastructure. He'll need to get the economy back on track. There's more unemployment than during the Great Depression. And I was reading something published by the Department of Transportation, the National Department of Transportation, and it says that for every $1 trillion you spend on infrastructure, you can create 11 million new jobs. So he needs to get out there and build bridges and tunnels and repave highways and create those 11 million new jobs. Show that Democrats can do it. And he needs to do that now while interest rates are low and while everybody understands the needs. China's economy has already recovered from the virus and is growing again. America is sitting around like some fat frog that can't hop anymore. And And one thing, he didn't campaign on this, but I believe we need a summer jobs program for young people. We used to have it under Democratic presidents where you apply to the city of Philadelphia and get your teenage son and teenage daughter a summer job. And I think that may help stem some of the violence in our city. Again, he didn't promise it, but I think it's something pressing because, 400 people were killed in Philly last year, 400 or so the year before? Yeah, we need to do something to get our kids in bed by 10 o'clock because they got to get up at 7 the next day to go to some kind of job, any kind of job. And that means a jobs program. And it's going to cost $1 or $2. But, so I would urge Uncle Joe to take on those three things, stimulus, infrastructure, and summer jobs, if he wants to put food on the table for folks who need it, Solomon.
I love it. I want to talk about Kamala Harris before we go because she's the first black, the first woman, the first South Asian to be elected vice president. She's now the Democrats' tie-breaking vote in the Senate. How should she exercise her power as vice president, and how should the Democrats use their razor-thin Senate majority?
Historically speaking, incumbent presidents lose seats in the Congress when the midterm elections come around. So unless Biden can win over the American people with his positive action, he and Kamala together, he's going to certainly lose that razor-thin majority in both houses. He'll be back where Obama was, with no power in either house. So Biden and Harris have to give folks a reason to vote Democratic again. Trump is gone, and they can't use him as a boogeyman anymore. They have to do what Democrats aren't used to doing. They have to deliver. We saw this with Obama. He was so cautious in his first 2 years, he lost control of the Congress, and the only thing he really achieved in his 8 years was Obamacare. Biden and Harris have to double the minimum wage and tie it to the rate of inflation so the working poor never fall behind again, and then they need to brag about it. They can stop taxing unemployment benefits so folks can have more money to spend, and then they got to brag about it. They've got to forgive big portions of student debt so folks can live normal lives and then brag about it. The big problem Obama had was that he was too modest. He never bragged. You got to tell folks what you've done for them, and then you'll keep them voting for you. They can't afford to be seen as just a team of more politicians, or they're going to lose everything that black folks worked so hard to deliver to them. The battle to elect Warnock and Ossoff would have been for nothing. So without a solid record to run on, Harris won't stand much of a chance to get reelected in her own right just 3.5 years from now. So, Solomon, the margins are thin, but I say swing for the fences. If they don't, we're going to lose everything that black folks handed to the Democratic Party.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And we talked a little bit earlier in the show about how right now it's about building up Kamala Harris for that run, 4 years from now. She's going to be the candidate 4 years from now. And so they need to be building up her muscle. You know what I mean? They need to be, building up a record for her to run on, because I guarantee you the Republicans right now, knowing that she is going to be the candidate in 4 years, are trying to figure out how to tear her down. And so if they know, like I know, they better be building her up and fortifying her against the attack that's going to come. The attack is being plotted now. They have to build her up, Jay.
I agree with you. Look what they did to Hillary Clinton. They drugged her name through the mud for 3-4 years. Benghazi, 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 emails. And they muddied her up so badly that she lost to a jackal like Trump. And so, they got to build a firewall around Kamala, give her a good, solid record of accomplishments, because she's the future. Who was the, I forget the name of the black female who Biden brought on to help his campaign, Simone Sanders. Simone now works for Kamala Harris. She didn't take a job with Biden. She knows that Kamala is the future, and that's a sure sign of it. She didn't want to work for Joe. She wanted to work for Ms. Harris, and she's the future. You and I agree, 1,000,000,000% on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is Jay McCalla. Jay McCalla, of course, a veteran political consultant, held senior positions in both the Rendell and Street administrations, brings deep knowledge to politics, and does so from an African-American perspective. Jay, thanks so much.
Always an honor.
Don't miss Wake Up with Word.
Weekdays 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. right here on WURD Radio. You're listening to the best of WURD Radio. Listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Evening Words
with Nick Taliaferro
on WURD Radio.
This is Inauguration Day, and joining us is a voice that you heard just a couple of weeks on our station. He teaches in the political science department at Drexel University, a well-known commentator in all things presidential and historical. Please make welcome once again, Dr. William Rosenberger. Dr. Rosenberger, it's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for joining us again.
It's my pleasure.
Well, sir, a new air has blown through our country, and today vows were taken, oaths were recited on the Capitol stairs, and we now have a new president. Characterize this changing of the guards for me, if you would, for us, if you would be so kind.
Well, I sort of divide it up into two pieces. One is the personal side that seems to be impacting me all day, is a number of people like sending me texts saying I can breathe again. Now, those are obviously not coming from conservative voices or Republican voices, but a lot of people are very relieved about what transpired today. And just a couple of moments ago, on the United States Senate floor, there were 3 new senators who were sworn in. 2 from the state of Georgia,
yes.
Warnock and Ossoff, an African-American minister, a Jewish millennial, and then Padilla, who is from California, the first Hispanic to represent the state of California. So there were a lot of firsts going on, in addition to the big story with Joe Biden being inaugurated along with Kamala Harris. So it's been a very big day. For many, it started yesterday when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris went to the Lincoln Memorial and went to the reflecting pool to sort of commemorate in a national observance the 400,000 Americans who have been lost to COVID. Something that the former president, and that's actually the first time I've used that phrase, the former president, never did. He never sort of had sort of the moment of silence or the remembrance for all those lives that were lost. And that's set up for today's experience. And as we go through this program, I'll share with you some other thoughts about how this inauguration came about and what it means.
Well, I mean, look, this is a great time to enter into that, because I know that the symbolism of the peaceful transference of power is one thing about these inaugurations, but this particular inauguration had been impinged upon by so many other elements, the recalcitrance and the the truculent attitude of the former president, his unwillingness to acknowledge his loss or to recognize that that democratic policies are more important than his own personality. So tell us a little bit more about what you see or what you saw in the inauguration as a matter of ritual.
So one of the things that I haven't seen discussed on any of the news coverage of the day, but what I think is very important is that if people have been paying attention and watching either network news or cable news over the past week or so, you've seen the arrival of 25,000 National Guardsmen that were here to restore order and protect the inauguration. We saw 8-foot-high fencing that made the area of the Capitol equivalent to the green zone in Baghdad. So while we were celebrating this peaceful transition of power, it really wasn't so peaceful. It was an armed camp. And what was also, I thought, really remarkable is that I've been advocating for maybe a couple of weeks now that I thought that there shouldn't have been a standard inauguration at the Capitol steps. I thought it should have been at the White House, as it was done with FDR in his fourth term, or at some more secure location like FedEx Field, where you could still have a number of people there, but you could maintain security. I just had these fears of a small, not as big as the band of insurgents at the Capitol 2 weeks ago. The imagery of combative protesters being caught on television and being shown all over the world. I thought that would be a devastating scenario. Not so much that I was afraid for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's lives, but just the imagery of the optics of it. But I have to say that I think that it ended up turning out to be a wonderful experience, okay? There wasn't that insurgence that's happening, but I would also caution many listeners to realize that, and I realize I'm going to sound a little bit negative when I say this, bin Laden changed our lives, okay?
True.
After 9/11, we no longer fly the same way we used to with planes, and we don't take trains in the same way, and security is so much different. Now that we've seen an insurgence like this, we're much more aware of the potential danger that exists in the United States. And those people, while we may arrest 300 or 400 of them, and we may prosecute them, there were thousands of people there, and there were also sympathizers all over the country. So, it's going to be interesting what happens. Are the fences going to come down tomorrow? I don't think so.
No. Well, let me ask you. I mean, what is it that poisoned the zeitgeist of America, where we had to create an armed camp out of our capital city? Donald Trump didn't create these things. He is the embodiment, the avatar of them. But what led to this place where Americans are taking up arms against other Americans in the name of patriotism?
Well, I would suggest it's a very long arc of history that we're talking about. And if I was just to choose a point in history, I would recognize the Civil War. When we had the North and the South combating over a variety of policies, but one of the central one being slavery. But there were others as well, including states' rights. And, with the feature of the outcome of the war where the Union won.
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Organizations like the Ku Klux Klan, and how that developed into Jim Crow laws, and how basically the United States has never really gotten out of that mode, although I would say that it was more hidden. It wasn't so much on the surface. Not that it wasn't certainly there, but it was under the radar, so to speak. And even the FBI that's been dealing with, quote, domestic terrorism, has had a little bit of a blind eye. If we just think back to Tim McVeigh blowing up the federal building, he's of the same ilk of a lot of the people that stormed the Capitol. And, you know, when some in the government said we have to pay much more close attention to this, it didn't get much attention, particularly in the Trump administration. Now, it didn't start in 2016. The FBI could have been more aggressive about it. But now, you know, when I read coverage in the New York Times or other publications, I'm amazed by the number of groups that are out there that have these right-wing leanings. It's truly remarkable. The peacekeepers, the people that are part of the Oath group,
you know, Oath Keepers, yeah.
Oath Keepers. It's just an incredible number. The 3%ers. You know, if you could just go back and capture just the names of the groups that have been, you know, written about this week, it's amazing that it was so hidden in terms of being right in front of us but not talked about. And I think Charlottesville just a couple of years ago gave rise to that scenario as well, when Donald Trump said there are good people on both sides, when one side was marching saying you will not replace us with tiki torches and neo-Nazi images. And this has been going on for a while. And while I don't want to make the focus of this discussion today just on the negative, I think we have to be very cautious that not to believe that just because we got through this day, that all of those people and all of that ideology of hate is going to dissipate, even though Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to do the best they can to try and dampen that and try and turn people around. I'm kind of skeptical that for the most hardcore that's going to be successful.
We just finished speaking with a gentleman from the Lincoln Project, a group of disaffected Republicans who really put their money where their mouth was and fought against the Republican candidate, which happened to be Donald Trump, even though they were former Republicans. What do you see going forward as far as the political landscape? Are we going to remain a two-party, for the most part, community where you're either with us or against us? Or will the emergence of other parties help this nation to perhaps strengthen the idea of diversity when it comes to politics?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we have to consider. First of all, we're not just a nation of two parties. That the largest group of Americans is actually independent voters.
Oh, really? Still? Really?
So about 40% of voters are independent, and then the Democrats and the Republicans split the remainder. So these are basically the swing voters. They can turn the election in one direction or another. I think in recent years, a lot of the independents have actually been leaning Republican, and in particular in 2016, they certainly did. But in 2020, I think they came back a little bit towards the Democratic Party. They had their experiment with sort of shaking things up, and for many of them, they didn't like it. And in particular, I think one of the groups that falls into that category are white suburban women around places like Philadelphia, but also around places like Atlanta, Georgia. So that there's a teetering of the balance of power. But in addition to this, you mentioned the Lincoln Project. I don't think they would necessarily view themselves as not Republicans. They may view themselves as a group who has had their party hijacked. Okay, so they don't necessarily want to lose the identity of being the Republican Party. They just don't want the white nationalists calling the day. And, you know, it's kind of ironic because yesterday, one of the major actors on the national level with that group of individuals was granted a pardon by the president, okay, who was involved in a scheme to raise money to build a border wall. You know, we don't usually have infrastructure projects sort of funded by cash donations by individuals. But nonetheless, that's what happened, and he skimmed off $1 million. So he was granted a pardon yesterday, Steve Bannon.
Bannon, I thought that they had broken up. I thought that they weren't dating anymore.
Well, they were broken up, but then, they actually have some affinity where they came back because Bannon wanted to support him and get him reelected. That was his path back into the good graces of power. But ultimately, what my point that I'm trying to get at is that we have segments within the Republican Party that basically Hillary Clinton would have called the deplorables, okay? But we also have to recognize that there are elements in the Democratic Party that are also potentially a problem as well. And if you think a group like Antifa might fall into that category, they don't consider themselves Democrats, but they're on the left side generally of the political continuum. So I think we have to be careful in terms of thinking about how we view the dynamics of politics, recognizing that there are a lot of people that are persuadables who are the independents, that some of the Republicans basically just got fed up with Donald Trump and some of the right-wing accolades that he had. But, they also want to cling to power. You have people like Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, people like Senator Hawley. You had the 140 House members that were going along with trying to remove the vote of the American people and put Donald Trump back into office, including Vice President Pence, who has sort of seen the light over the last week or two, and probably got it elevated in terms of the light brightness when he saw people coming to hang him at the United States Congress. So, we have a lot going on, a lot of moving parts.
Well, how do we reclaim at the risk of sounding like Donald Trump, where he says there's a lot of good people on both sides, everybody in the Republican Party is not a racist demagogue. How do we reclaim that party? This is the party of Lincoln. This is the party that stood behind the Emancipation Proclamation. It's lost its soul. Is there hope for it, or do you have to treat it like the Whig Party and just start all over again with something new?
Well, I would suggest that you have to be careful about party labels, because essentially at the time of Lincoln, it was the Democrats who were the ones that were pushing for slavery.
Right.
Okay. And
Lester Maddox,
No, I'm talking about in the 18th.
Yeah, earlier. I'm just saying, but that spirit, yeah.
Right. So what happened was that group, that were the Southern Democrats, basically were essentially the political right in terms of segregation and a lot of other issues. And they continued to fester and grow. And it wasn't until the 1960s when LBJ pushed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, did the South flip to the Republicans. The South used to be solidly Democratic.
Yeah,
it wasn't the Democratic Party of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. So what happens is that now when we look at national voting, the South is still very heavily Republican, with increases in voter participation, particularly among African Americans, and with more people moving to cities like Atlanta or Florida from other parts of the country. That's sort of collapsing a little bit. But that part of the country, and as you go through the lower Midwest and then up to areas like Idaho and North Dakota, those are still red. They're still Republicans. So I think what we're seeing is that Joe Biden, in his his inauguration speech today, was basically calling out to the nation to say we have to have unity, we have to work together, we have to find the things that bind us in a way that makes America stronger. Now, whether or not the right-wing elements or the conservative elements are going to come on board, that's still an open question.
We're speaking with Dr. William Rosenberger, professor of political science at Drexel University. This is Inauguration Day, so of course our thoughts center around the inauguration, but we can't do that without talking about what has happened to this country and the lingering after effects of it. What does it say to you as we consider the previous election and the previous presidency, that a person like a Donald Trump, who was as rabid...
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Whistle code speaking, still gained 6 percentage points among black male voters and almost 6 percentage points among Latino or Latinx women voters. How could that happen, and what does it say to you?
Well, those types of numbers, while surprising, are still understandable. If you looked at who went into the White House and was able to successfully get Donald Trump to do things that maybe he wouldn't have wanted to do, think of the name Kanye West. Okay, he went into the White House, and I always remember the day he was there pushing for criminal justice reform. He was there with Jim Brown. And for those of your listeners that aren't so familiar with Jim Brown, he was an NFL superstar in the 1960s, and he was also a major social activist. He walked away from the NFL when he was being pressured to come back from a film he was making in Europe, and his team refused to grant him a little bit of an extension. And then he turned around and organized largely black athletes to create sort of a social movement that was based upon economic reform. And later he was a major player in sort of promoting the dissolution of gang violence in the United States, particularly out in California. But when I saw that day in the Oval Office with Kanye West and Jim Brown was happy that this notion about criminal justice reform was taking place. But you could see the pain on his face on how he was sitting there knowing what was in the back of the mind of Donald Trump. And I think that sort of summarizes politics. Jim Brown was there because he was getting something that he desperately wanted, okay? The criminal justice reform. But if you think about the broader picture, Jim Brown didn't want to be there on a bet, okay? So what happens is that people make decisions. They make decisions that are sort of very consequential. And I'll give you another Philadelphia example. Okay. If we go back to the 1970s, Philadelphia had Frank Rizzo, the mayor of Philadelphia.
Right.
And if your listeners remember Whitman Park in South Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
There was a move afoot to try and push blacks out of that neighborhood and gentrify it, not necessarily the way Society Hill is today, but make it white again. And it ended up that Frank Rizzo wanted to kind of get the support of that community, the white community there.
Right.
So he made a statement at a rally in which he said, there's an election coming up. There's votes going to be important. Whites need to support me, essentially what he was saying. And then the applause went up through the roof. But in fairness to Frank Rizzo, he was overpowered in terms of the sound in the room. And he said, and blacks who think like I do should vote for me as well. Okay. So what happened was he did codify essentially the fact that he wasn't just overtly racist by just the first part of the statement that got picked up by the mic. But what was really interesting is when you look at charter change reform, which was going to allow the mayor to run for another term, there were still 4% of blacks in Philadelphia that voted for Frank Rizzo.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why a lot of them did it was that they were policemen and firemen and municipal service people, and they either had a personal affinity because they knew him personally, or they felt comfortable that he was going to protect their jobs and give them raises. So people make decisions, and they're not always as clear on the surface as they are underneath.
Got about 2 minutes left, Dr. Rosenberg. Time with you just flies as we're talking. Your grasp of history is always refreshing to me. But let's look to the future now. We've got a new president. We've got a new vice president. It's not enough to simply have euphoria because we got rid of something. Now we have to embrace what we have. Tell me what we have. What can you expect from the, let's look at the first 100 days of the Biden presidency.
I think we can look at today and tomorrow. Okay, wow. That initially that Biden is going to make extensive use of executive orders. He's going to lift the Muslim travel ban. He is going to require people to wear masks in all federal buildings. He is going to have us recommit to the climate change protocols. He's going to try and get us re-engaged with Iran to try and lower the tensions. And he's going to be pushing from today on COVID relief and economic stimulus. Those are things that are going to happen right out of the box. You know, he's probably not thrilled about an impeachment process because it's going to divert attention and it's going to give oxygen to people that are not his supporters, both in government and out. But I think now that President Trump has 50 senators plus the vote of Kamala Harris, he's going to be in a much stronger position. He still has to hold the Democratic Party caucus together. And with some members of the Senate, for example, someone like Manchin, he may want to sway a little bit because he comes from a very red state. So the president's going to have to work hard to keep the Democrats in line and lure over a couple of Republicans. And Nancy Pelosi has a razor-thin sort of caucus that's in control. So she's also got to basically work very hard to count votes and to get people to come on board.
We've been speaking with Dr. William Rosenberg, who is a professor at Drexel University, where he teaches in the political science department. Dr. Rosenberg is the author of several books and a plethora of articles and is an expert on matters of election and public opinion. It's always a pleasure to have you, sir. I thank you for joining us on this very heady day in America when we dare to hope that what we've seen is over and that the sun will shine brighter going forward. Thank you for your time and look forward to the next time you're with us.
Right, and I hope your audience tunes in tonight because there's going to be some great entertainment. Since there's not going to be the usual balls and gatherings.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of entertainment to celebrate the inauguration.
Well, I'll tell you, the inauguration itself was pretty entertaining. Jennifer Lopez singing at an inauguration. It was quite a performance. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, and all the best to you.
All right, you take care.
You've been listening to the best of WURD Radio. You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro on WURD Radio.
You pick up the phone, and on the other end, there is a voice telling you that you just won $10,000, and all you need to do is send $250 to get the $10,000. And the way that you do it is to put it in this and go get a card and do it over there. Or you go online and there's something that says, click this place, and you will get a brand new car. There are 100 different ways out there that people are trying to take your money. But the National Consumers League exists to make sure that you are forewarned and forearmed against people trying to scam you, scheme you, or scandalize you out of your cash. Joining us today is the Vice President of Public Policy, Telecommunications, and Fraud of the National Consumers League. He had joined us a few years back, and please make welcome once again, John Brault. Did I say it correctly, Brault? Is that?
It's Brault or Brault, however you want to pronounce it.
I was wondering if there was the French pronunciation. I didn't see a croissant in your hand, so I figured I'd put the hard T.
Yeah, I left those back at the bakery today.
Well, John, it's a pleasure to have you join us again. Happy New Year to you, man, and thanks for all that you do, and welcome back.
Same to you, Nick, and it's great to be on the show, and I appreciate you inviting me to talk about scams today.
Well, you know, man, listen, the first time, and I remember the first time we had it, I had a relative who had been scammed out of $5,000 by someone who called and knew everything about the family and all of that, and you helped us out that time. And I was saying, because we're getting calls again where people are saying that they're getting all sorts of entreaties to get them to buy into some schemes, some scams. Before we even talk about the specific scams that are out there, why is it that we're seeing so many of them at this time of the year? Is this the holiday season?
Well, you know, we're kind of in the perfect storm right now for scams. You're right. Every holiday season, we see scammers come out of the woodwork offering, you know, some way for you to get some extra cash for the presents or to pay off your holiday credit card bill. But on top of that, we also have the coronavirus pandemic. And so that has taken scams that we've seen year over year and really supercharged them. Scammers are really coming out of the woodwork. And one reason is because people are facing financial difficulty right now. Millions of Americans are out of work and wondering how they're going to make ends meet. And so somebody calling you up and saying, hey, for $500, I can make sure that you get this prize worth $10,000. That's more difficult to resist when you're wondering how you're going to put food on the table. And then the second thing about that is that since so many people are at home, we are disconnected from our social support networks. So in the past, if I could, you know, went to the office and mentioned to somebody something weird email or weird phone call I got, or I went to the barbershop or a restaurant, somebody would be there to tell you, you know, that sounds fishy to me. But since we're all stuck at home and many of us are isolated, we become really the perfect targets for these scammers.
Folks, for those of you who are listening saying, hey, wait a minute, I might be on the hook with some people. I may be involved. I advise you to listen a little bit more closely. Call your friends. Shoot, call your enemies. Tell them that you're in a position right now to hear from a gentleman who is going to equip you with the knowledge that you need to avoid being taken by those who will exploit your gullibility or your need. We're speaking with John Brault, and we're talking about scams and schemes that people are perpetrating on innocent, naive, and sometimes just folks who think that something good has come their way. Let me ask, and this is your field, the telecommunications technical field has become so pervasive now. Back when we talked the first time, a lot of this stuff was relatively novel, but nowadays, even our appliances are talking on the internet. Tell me how the pervasiveness of the internet and the telecommunications field, how is that helping our scammers to either hide or exploit us?
Well, the internet, like so many other things, has been a revolution for scammers. Their ability to communicate across vast distances, organize themselves, get money, reach millions of victims, was really supercharged by the internet. And I think, you know, one thing that consumers need to realize is that if you have been defrauded or somebody you know has been defrauded, it's not because necessarily they were naive or greedy or too stupid to recognize that this was a scam. It's really important to understand that these are professional criminals. They're organized, and they have scripts. They talk amongst themselves. They know exactly what they're doing, and they know all the buttons to push to try and get you to fall victim to their schemes. So I think it's important for folks to know that the scammers will contact you via almost any kind of communications medium you may be using, whether it's over email, text message, through the phone, over good old-fashioned postal mail, on Facebook, social media. The scammers are on all those platforms, and they're trying to reach victims. So I think it's really important, more important now than ever, to be honest with you, that you look at a skeptical eye when you get one of these messages. Stop and ask yourself these three questions. Number one, does this sound too good to be true? Number two, who gains by me responding to this? And number 3, what do they want from me, right? And if you ask yourself those 3 questions before you click on a link or reply to that email or engage with somebody on the phone, chances are that you're less likely to be a victim of these schemes. It's really important because the scammers really, they get by and they defraud people because they create a sense of urgency. They make you think that something bad is going to happen right away if you don't take action, whether it's, you're going to miss out on a big prize you may have, or we see these government imposters who threaten people that the police are coming to their door if they don't get the money. It's all designed to try and get you to act without thinking. So stop, step back, think about it for a second, ask somebody you know and trust if they've heard about this, if this sounds right to them, because the scammers really are professionals at this, and they're really good at making you scared and get you to pay money quickly.
John, before we start talking about some of the more common scams that we're seeing out there, let me just ask about how much money are we typically talking about when these individuals, when they reach out and they try to take someone. Are we talking about hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands? What are we talking about?
Well, it really depends on the scam and on the victim. So, for example, the biggest complaint that gets reported about scams to the Federal Trade Commission is about imposter scams. These are the ones where somebody calls you up on the phone and says, I'm with the government, I need you to give me $500 or we're going to come and bust down your door, right? That is, the median loss for those is $700. But you take that over all the reports that the FTC received last year, and we're talking almost $500 million in total losses reported. So it's really big money. But, that $700, it's the median. Of all the people that sort of reported a loss, that's the median.
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Our fraud.org website has heard from consumers who have literally lost their life savings, people who have had to who've taken out second mortgages, raided their kids' college funds, liquidated their 401ks to pay scammers.
Oh, man.
So people's lives really do get ruined by these criminals. So that's why I think it's so important that folks are on the lookout and, be aware that these scammers are out there. They're organized, and they're going to try and rip you off for every cent of money you have.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time for you to get your pens, get your paper. You don't want to play around with this. These folks are out there, and as John just said, they will ruin your entire life. And now we're going to talk about some of the common scams and schemes that are running about. Some of you may know someone, or you yourself might have found yourself listening to the seductive tones of someone who is trying to reel you in. You may have some questions that you might wish to ask. We'll open the phone lines now if you have questions. 215-634-8065 is the number. 215-634-8065, and we'll set up a time after we've heard about some of these scams where you can ask your question to the expert. But right now, John, let's start talking about some of the common scams that we're seeing that we can warn our people about.
Sure. So the biggest scam for the first 3 quarters of 2020, this is where we have the most up-to-date data of, the biggest scam has been these imposter scams. Those are things like somebody claiming to be with the IRS, somebody claiming to be a friend or relative who suddenly emergency need for money. It is also known as the grandparent scam.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Somebody claiming to be with Microsoft tech support. Those are imposter scams. We tend to see those most often coming through the phone. People calling you in the middle of the night saying they're a relative, they're stuck in Mexico, they need $1,000 to get out of jail. Right? That's the number one kind of scam that's being reported. The second one is the robocalls. Right? All of us get robocalls all the time, and this has historically always been one of the top scams that gets reported. But it also includes things like people getting unsolicited junk faxes for those of us who still have fax machines, calls to where you get that phone call that says, the one ring scam. This is one where you get somebody rings your cell phone once and they're waiting for you to call them back. And what they're hoping you do is you call them back at a number that charges very high phone rates. These are often numbers in like the Dominican Republic or Jamaica that look like numbers that you would get used to in the U.S. The third biggest type of fraud that's been reported has been fraud associated with online shopping, right? So these are the websites with the too good to be true price for those in-demand fashion, in-demand electronics and gifts. It could be dietary supplements or medications that are being sold online. So those are the big three. Those make up about 60% of all the complaints that were reported to the FTC in 2020. So, those are the ones, but certainly there are many others out there. There are the prizes and sweepstakes and lotteries that people say, just pay me $500 and you'll win $1 million. There are counterfeit check scams. There's sort of fraudulent vacation schemes out there. So it's really, I think, important for consumers to, while these scams come in lots of different flavors, and each one has sort of their own twist, and different fraudsters love to do new twists on old scams. I think stepping back and recognizing that the common thing in all of these scams is they're going to try and create a sense of urgency, get you to pay before you think. They're going to ask you to pay in some unusual way. It could be via a gift card that they tell you to go out and buy from Target and give them the number on the back. It could be sending them money on Venmo or PayPal. Or even we've heard of seen where consumers are just being urged to put cash into an envelope and send it to these scammers. So, step back and think about that. Would I go out and buy a gift card for somebody I've never met in real life?
How about, do they ever ask you to pay in Bitcoin or?
Yeah, sometimes the Bitcoin is one we hear about occasionally, but because most consumers aren't familiar with paying for things with Bitcoin,
right.
They may not know how to get it or even how to convert cash into Bitcoin. It's a complicated process that takes time, and taking time is exactly what the fraudsters don't want you to do, because the longer you wait, the more likely you are to talk to somebody who's going to talk you out of this, to step back and find great resources like ours at fraud.org or at the Federal Trade Commission or other organizations, or talk to family members. So yeah, the Bitcoin is something we hear about from time to time, but really it's those other ones, the gift cards, the PayPals and Venmos, seem to be the most prolific ways that fraudsters ask to get paid right now.
We're going to get to the phone lines, and then we'll, after we take a couple of calls, if John is able, we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and continue, because at some point I want to talk about where your money actually goes. How come they can't find it for you? But Kim, you are our first caller. We're speaking with John Braille of the National Consumers, let me make sure I say that right, National Consumers League. Did I get that right, John?
You got that right.
And we'll be talking about how people are trying to take your money through scams. Kim, you're up first. Thank you for your call, and welcome to this conversation with John.
Great. Happy New Year to you, Reverend Nick, and to you, John.
Thank you.
2021 be a wonderful year ahead for each of you.
Thank you so much.
And for all the listeners as well. Look, I want to talk about how Facebook has these romantic interludes with lonely older women. I know a woman who I believe, and I don't have any confirmation of it, might have kicked out more than $100,000 over some military scam. And she's been talking to this guy for 14 years. She never met him. When I looked him up, I couldn't even present it to her. The person who he says he is, he can't be, because he's at the University of Maryland. Yet she thinks he's undercover working in Turkey in some military mess. And what they do is they use Western Union. I have another friend from high school who was caught up with this guy named Leonard Parks, or Parker, I think it's Parks, from Facebook. And, you know, girlfriends talk, and they're, just love, and this. And she started talking about him and all these accolades of love and romantic, almost like Disney World in letter format. And you want to say something, but they're so offended because they're so sure and confident that this love is genuine that they'll do anything for these people. I have actually taken them to Western Union, and another friend I know, I personally found her more than $250,000, and she's probably used a lot of it on this person trying to get him out of this military mess that doesn't really exist. You know, but you can't be candid. So it's psychological also, the need for, you know, love or to be appreciated. So, John, what do you say about this?
You know,
good question.
Yeah, you know, these romance scams, unfortunately, are some of the most expensive ones for someone to fall victim to. We hear about, unfortunately, stories like your friend on a fairly regular basis. And what I said earlier about this being an organized criminal enterprise is absolutely true when it comes to these romance scams. We have seen organized criminal gangs, many of them based out of places like Cameroon or Senegal, where they create hundreds of personas trying to find people on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, online dating sites, where they'll take pictures of military members or other people who look like you should trust them, and create these personas and present them to men and women, frankly, to try and entrap them in these schemes. And the scenario you described is very common, where there's sort of flowery language, and very quickly they try and establish this romantic relationship, ultimately to defraud them. But it's not the. Go ahead, Nick.
Kim, did you say she's been in a relationship with this non-existent person for 14 years?
Friends do, to psychologically help them move into the next level on the decision making on this thing. It's got to end somewhere. They even know it's got to end. They don't. My other friend who lives in Chester, she doesn't want her family to know. She hides things. You know, she wanted me to hide the facts. You know, which I did. I mean, I was supportive of her, but I felt foolish. So what can I do, John and Reverend Nick? I pray for them every day. They get plenty of money, but they give it all away.
Well, Kim, I think some things that might help is, number one, there's plenty of information on the web about romance scams. On our organization, we've done fraud alerts like this. We do them almost every February to coincide with Valentine's Day, to try and show the red flags of what these scams are like. Another thing I've heard folks having a lot of success with is if there's, usually you'll get a picture, whether it's like sort of a profile picture on Facebook or something that somebody has sent to you. You can put that picture into Google. It's called a reverse image search. Put that picture onto Google, and chances are that scammer has used that same photo in other places.
Yeah, that's how I found out about Leonard Park, because I was able to see that he had multiple scams. Look, I'm a finder. I'm probably the greatest skip tracer ever in existence in America. I would like to join with your forces and find these fools and actually prosecute them, because that's internet. There's got to be internet police.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to take a break real soon. But John, if you can give your website so that people who might be interested in teaming up with you, like Kim, and Kim, let me just ask one question. Can you give me just an age range of your friend, how old that friend might be?
One of them is 66 now, and the other one is 70. I think she's 75. She'll be 76 next month. But you know what? They think he's younger than them. The one that's 75 thinks he's 59, you know, and the guy who's in the picture's got to be 70. So I will do the reverse image. So thanks, John, for that. But I am definitely adamant to do something to make a difference in women's lives in America, because it's a shame and it's disgraceful.
Well, let's get the website for you so that you can connect with John's agency. John, if you'd be so kind.
Sure. So our website is www.fraud.org. That's FRAUD.org. And what you can do on our website, whether it's your friend herself or you as someone who's concerned about her, you can file a complaint on our website. We share those complaints with a network of law enforcement and consumer protection agency partners. And it's those guys who spot these trends, who start to put the dots together. If they see one name in your complaint be the same name in another, they can start to build cases. And while it's not, every single time that they're able to put these guys behind bars, they have and they do go after these criminals. So file a complaint, and I think you're doing the right thing, Kim, by being a friend to your friend who's been a victim of this. But I would certainly try and do the reverse image search thing, provide her with the information that our organization has out there, as well as many others have out there about romance scams. And hopefully, if we all work together, we can help protect her and all the other people who are falling victims of these scams.
Thank you, Kim, for that call. We're going to take a quick break. John, are you okay time-wise to take a few more calls on the other side of the break?
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the opportunity and the privilege to speak with John Brayo of the National Consumers League, where he's the Vice President of Public Policy, Telecommunications, and Fraud. And we're talking about scams that you see happening around us all the time. We'll take this quick pause. The phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065. We'll take your calls and continue our conversation after this break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio. You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Thank you for listening, everybody. I am Nick Taliaferro. This is Evening Words, and joining us in our virtual studio is a gentleman who is helping us to become better equipped to deal with those who would try to scam us out of our resources. He gave us a list of several things to look out for. The imposter scam, where somebody calls pretending to be maybe even a relative of yours or an official from some agency. Robocalls that call you and try to get you to become involved in some type of connection that may take more money from you simply by your making a phone call. Online shopping scams. I will readily admit to one time, I could not believe that sweater in my size was that cheap, and it wasn't. and then there are prize scams, and then last but not least, Kim helped us out by talking about the romance scams. Our guest is John Brayo of the National Consumers League, and we'll open our phones up, 215-634-8065. There are people on the line. John, thank you so much for joining us. It must be heartrending to hear some people when they realize that they have sold their lives for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it is heartrending. But, the way that we always try and talk to victims is to tell them that they are a victim of a crime, just like somebody who had been mugged or had their car stolen. It's professionals who are out there to make you a victim, and you wouldn't hesitate to report it if your car had gotten stolen, you've been mugged in the street. The same thing happens with fraud, and these scammers are counting on you to be so ashamed to not report it that they can continue this cycle of victimizing people.
Have mercy. We go now to Mount Airy, where Reverend Joe is waiting to have his say. Reverend Joe, welcome back to you and Happy New Year, my friend.
Same to you, Reverend. You outdid yourself today. This is great information.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Call you to ask for your Social Security number.
Yeah, I mean, and you sound just a little low, so I'm going to ask if we can just turn that up a little bit. There you go.
Yeah, when they call you to ask you your Social Security number, that's the beginning of a fraud, some type of, because if they knew who you are, they should have all that information.
Good point.
Yeah, I think, Reverend, you're absolutely right. If somebody calls and asks you for your social or sends you an email and asks for your Social Security number, heck, if you call up your bank and they ask you for your Social Security number to verify who you are, I would ask them if there's some other kind of information you can provide like an account number, for example. And that's because the Social Security number is a unique identifying number for each of us. And scammers can use that along with your name and date of birth to do things like open up lines of credit in your name, take out medical insurance claims in your name. So I think it's really important for consumers to recognize that that's a very special number. It should be kept safe and not given out to just anybody who asks you for it.
But Reverend, we need to have Kim coming to the church and speak sometime.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, when you think about the number of men and women who are lonely, and even if they fear they're being taken, the adventure of simply having the interchange with somebody and feeling as though I am rescuing somebody becomes sort of a drug in and of itself, Reverend.
Yeah, I'm proud to say that Kim is one of our members. I know she is. But look,
okay.
Your nephew is a chip off the old block and kicked after his father, not you.
You're right about that, man. But I will accept it as a compliment anyway. Thanks so much for that, Reverend Joe.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, man. All right, continue on our conversation. Let me just ask this question, then we'll go to Woody. And the phone lines are still open at 215-634-8065, 634-8065. If you think you're being scammed, if you know somebody being scammed, if you are concerned and you have questions, this is a good time to ask the expert. When, if I give my money to Macy's or some store, I know where it is, and the people who handle my money and who make the transaction, they know where it is. How come these folks are able to get my money and hide it so quickly that I can't get it back, John?
Well, there's a number of reasons for that. Number one is that these scammers are using ways to get paid that are very difficult to reverse. So most of us are probably familiar with our credit card information getting out there and getting a call from your bank saying somebody's using it somewhere or seeing a suspicious charge. You call it the bank, you get it reversed, and you get your money back. That's why these scammers are asking people to pay with things like gift cards via sort of things like Venmo or Zelle or PayPal, because they know that when you pay those ways, once you find out it's a scam, it's very difficult to get that money back. They can turn that into cash very quickly. And they have networks of what are called the people they call money mules. So if these scammers are located overseas, and they often are, they often have accomplices in the United States whose sole job may be to go to Western Union and pick up that money order that's coming in for them, or get that piece of merchandise that's been ordered with the gift card and then turn that around and ship it somewhere else. So it's a very organized network. But I think it's really important that, and that's actually one of the ways that consumers can spot this, a red flag, is if somebody asks you to pay one of those ways, a gift card, PayPal, a Western Union or MoneyGram, a bank-to-bank transfer. Those are all ways that most of us rarely, if ever, pay for things.
Yeah, right.
So that's a big red flag that these can be scams. But, I did want to pick up on one thing that the Reverend reminded me of a moment ago. Is the power that your community has to help not only you, but everybody in your community to reduce their risk, right? So last year, I had the opportunity to go and speak to a church group in Edison, New Jersey. And that was one of the best ways that not only I was able to communicate to them about these scams, but to start a conversation where everybody feels comfortable talking about this, where you can talk about your son or daughter or grandfather or friend who'd fallen victim to this, and we all realize that we're not alone. And it hopefully reduces the stigma of reporting it and hopefully helps to better protect us all. So if you're in a church group or some other organization where you think that this kind of message needs to get out there, your state attorney general's office is a great place to go to ask for somebody to come and speak. The local Better Business Bureau is always willing to send folks to talk. So there are definitely resources in your community that can help you and help those you know and love to avoid these scams.
Let's get back to the phone lines, 215-634-8065. Our guest is John Brayo of the National Consumers League and Woody in Winfield. Thank you for the call, my friend, and welcome to the show.
Happy New Year, big brother.
Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Hey, look, you got an interesting conversation going on. I had a question for John. As it relates to the gentrification going on, John, inside inner cities where you have people who have been there for all their lives, and some of them are in their 70s and 80s now. And these people that want to buy their properties, they call them too, and they're 3 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't matter. I get these complaints at my barbershop all the time. And how do you get these people to stop getting people to have to get up? Because many of the elders don't have cell phones. They have to get up to go to the phone. And it's a lot of torture when they get there and find out that these same people trying to buy their house. On top of that, when they go to the supermarket, they have to leave home for whatever reason. They also have these realtors that actually put their houses on postcards. Now, they don't want to sell the house, but they put it on postcards, not in an envelope, and then mail it out so that everybody knows your name, knows where you live, sell your home here at whatever address it is. And so it's all printed out, and this continual harassment of phone calls for something you don't want to sell. You don't have a sell sign outside, and they are gentrifying our neighborhoods like crazy. And these people are going to be pushed out sooner or later, and these guys keep threatening. You may as well sell because the taxes are going to go up. You're not going to be able to pay. How do you stop that? How do you stop that and get the city involved in some way to help some of these people that don't want to sell their properties stay in their homes? Because everybody moving in is rich. So, yeah, the taxes are going up, but there needs to even be an adjustment on that as far as I'm concerned, because these people didn't get the proper education inside the inner cities to make the kind of funds that these rich people are making.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think, the kind of situation you talked about is, number one, it's terrible. People who are longtime members of their community should be able to stay in their homes and not get harassed for not selling to people who are trying to change the neighborhood. But how do you stop that? I think there's a number of ways you can do that. Well, very, very simply is when they call you, say, take me off of your list. And by doing that, they have to abide. And if they don't, then they're violating federal law.
Well, what about your house as it relates to the postcards? Postcards, this is not in an envelope. Your home, while you go to the supermarket, they got your home on a postcard, and some of these people say, hey, somebody pushed my gate in. My neighbor told me there was some people outside taking the pictures of the front of my house. So there's a lot of stuff that you just don't know.
Well, I've never heard that one, Woody.
I'm just trying to tell you, they're doing all kinds of things to get these people out of their original homes. Yet to me, there should be some assistance from the city in some way, or adjustments, so that these people can stay in their houses, that they don't have anywhere else to go. They can't sell. Where are they going to go? I don't care if you give them $1 million for the house. Where are you going?
Well, I think one thing one thing you can do about this is those postcards that you talked about, they're going to have a phone number on there. They're going to have an address of somebody that they want you to connect with to try and for selling this home. Save that number. And if they're doing things like you talked about, like going onto your property without your permission, taking pictures without your permission, that might violate local laws. So keep that information. You can share it with your local law enforcement, the local police department. Make sure, and then also, make sure that other people know about this, know this is going on, so that it may be your house they're coming to today, but chances are they're going to go to your neighbor's house tomorrow and the next day. So make everybody aware that this is going on. And say, if you see somebody on my property who's coming in and taking pictures, things like that, don't be afraid to tell them to get out. Yeah. So, I think by working together can help address that. It won't be a silver bullet, but it's a start.
I tell you what, Woody, I thank you for that. But if you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I've got a piece of real estate I'm going to tell you to go to, and it ain't my house. So trust me, it will not be. 215-634-8065. People are calling in to ask very pertinent questions about these scams that are taking place. We go now to South Philly, where Clyde wants to ask a question to John. Thank you for calling, Clyde, and welcome to WRD.
Hey, Nick. Not a question, just a comment. And
Sure enough.
I appreciate Woody and Reverend Joe getting out that information. One of the things that happened with me is particularly the postcard and these unsolicited mailings. Basically, what I do is call the number and tell them about file harassment charges on them. That's number one. Number two, they have the audacity back in South Philly a few years ago. They had the audacity to come through the block with a list of houses that sold in the neighborhood. So, I mean, you might be screaming at what I'm about to tell you, Nick, but the guy knocked on my door real hard like the police officer. So I came to the door. I said, first of all, I have a doorbell. Second of all, why are you knocking on my door? It's like, oh, well, these properties and this, that, and the other. I said, well, you hold on for a minute. I called 911, and I told him to wait there for a minute. So I proceeded to bring my handgun to the door. I didn't step outside the door. So I suggest that you get off my property.
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
Detroit, where the young lady knocked on the door and the guy killed her. Now, that might be extreme, but, you know, you get tired of some of this stuff, Nick. And basically, you know, the police came, removed him off the property, you know, asked me to step outside the door. I'm not stepping outside the door. You need to get him off my property before an accident happens. So, I mean, these people go through extremes. Like Reverend Joe said, they'll call and pretend like they're the Social Security company, Social Security Administration, asking you for numbers and names. And the particular guy called me. He was like, well, I need to verify your number. I said, oh, my number is 1-900, get a job. So, you know, we just have to start thinking more critically right now, because these scams are out here and they becoming even more clever at what they're doing. So I just appreciate you taking the call, and hope this information is good for the people, the radio listening audience.
And Clyde, do me a favor, man. Make sure if I ever decide to come by your house, tell me to call you first. So I just want to make sure you know I'm coming. Thank
Nick,
you, Clyde.
You know what, Nick? I really didn't want to do that, but I mean, we're in extreme time. I mean, I gave him a description. You're just knocking on my door when I have a doorbell. What is the problem? I don't have a sign on my house saying I'm selling it or anything.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We just RC had just called to ask a question or two, but thank you for that call, Clyde. I mean, people obviously are being set upon by a multiplicity of forces, and in the few minutes we have left, if you can just give us a little chapter and verse, a little bullet list of things that people can do if they know or if they believe that they're being scammed, John.
Well, number one, the first thing to do if you even suspect that you're being scammed is stop. Don't, hang up that phone. Don't reply to the email. Don't click on that link. Don't send them the money. Stop for a minute. Take a deep breath. And if you're still not sure after you've done that, ask for help from somebody. Mr. Rogers says, look for the helpers. And this is certainly true when we're talking about scams. Ask friends, ask family, get in touch with organizations like mine or your state attorney general's office. Chances are that if you're being approached by a scammer, other people have been approached by scammers with the same pitch too, and they can help you out. So that's number one. Number two is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So somebody calls you up out of the blue and says, you've won $10,000 and all you got to do is send me $500 to collect it. Or you get an email saying, I've got an inheritance for you or something like that. Sounds too good to be true. It probably is. Don't respond. And then finally, don't be ashamed. As I said before, scammers bank on people thinking that they're naive, people thinking that people aren't going to believe me because they're going to think I'm greedy. They may be worried about what their children might think if it's an older adult, if they find out that they've been defrauded. And that's what the scammers are counting on, the fact that this crime is tragically very underreported because of this shame that people feel when they're victims. You shouldn't feel any shame. You've been a victim of a crime just like anything else, so report it. Report it to your local police department, report it to your state attorney general, report it to my organization at fraud.org. Those are all places where we share information amongst ourselves. And by doing that, not only can you help protect yourself, but you can help protect others as well.
Well, John, it's been more than educational and enlightening. 10 seconds. What is the biggest loss or the most egregious scam that you've seen in recent times? I mean, where a person really took a hit. Anecdotally, if you could just share that with us. I
mean, we have seen losses of over $1 million.
Holy Jerusalem!
Yeah,
over $1 million.
Yeah, people who have liquidated life savings, who have taken out second mortgages, who have burned through inheritance to send money to these scammers. That's obviously not what we see every day, but some of these things we hear from consumers are just really heartbreaking stories that not only can cost you enormous sums of money, but unfortunately we've also heard of these scammers being a wedge between parents and their children.
Wow.
People just don't want to believe that they've been scammed. So it's a horrible crime, and I can't stress enough: stop, think, ask a friend for help, and just be careful out there.
Well, thanks for being a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening for the last 2/3 of an hour to John Braille, who is the Vice President of Public Policy and Telecommunications and Fraud at the National Consumers League. They exist to help people like you and me to find our way around these pitfalls of people trying to scam us. You can check them out online, and hopefully you'll get the information that you need to avoid these traps that are being laid for us. John, all the best to you in 2021, and thanks for spending some time with us again.
Same to you. Stay safe, Nick.
Same to you, my man.
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio. You're listening to the best of WURD Radio. Wake up with WURD.
Joining us now from Politico is Maya King. She's a Campaign 2020 reporting fellow at Politico. She co-authored a story called The Racial Contradictions of Trump's Law and Order Mantra. Maya, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yep, it's a pleasure. So walk us through what happened when protesters were outside the White House and Donald Trump wanted to go and take a photo. They were protesting about, what had happened around Black Lives. What happened when that happened?
Well, it was a moment, I think, that was burned into the minds of a number of Americans when we witnessed the tear gassing of these protesters in Lafayette Square last summer. That caused them, of course, to disperse. And it was a tactic to make room for the president and members of his family and his immediate circle to head to St. John's Episcopal Church in downtown Washington, for what we now know was simply a photo opportunity to show strength against the protesters, to solidify the president's role or his position opposite those who were protesting systemic racism and the killing of George Floyd. And it was a number of people saw it as an overstep of law enforcement in the way that they respond to citizens who are practicing their First Amendment right.
And so contrast that with what happened on Wednesday. What was law enforcement's response on Wednesday, and how was that different from what we've seen with some of these Black Lives Matter protests?
Well, it was pretty universally accepted by Democrats and a growing number of Republicans that the law enforcement response to the insurrection on Capitol Hill on Wednesday was largely inadequate. It was extremely easy for the rioters to breach the Hill grounds and actually enter the Capitol complex. They were able to access the offices of top lawmakers and Congress people like Nancy Pelosi and the House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. We saw from photos that even the House Parliamentarian's office was trashed and documents were taken. Only 55 arrests have been made as of Thursday as a result of Wednesday's insurrection, which pales in comparison, of course, to the arrests made not just in Washington, but across, over the summer during Black Lives Matter protesters and protests against systemic racism. For example, on one day, the highest number of arrests here in Washington were over 200 people for exercising, again, what was their First Amendment right, which is just, you can't really overstate what a stark contrast that is to what we know now was a domestic terrorist act, and only now 55 arrests have been made. And of those arrests, at least as of Thursday, only 15 faced federal charges.
So in terms of the contradiction, because we've heard some of the messaging that we got from the president, both during the time that he was running for president and while he was in office, what did he say around the subject of law and order?
Yeah, President Trump has used this message of being the law and order president as a way to rally his own supporters. It was a message that he repeated quite often last summer while he was campaigning for re-election, and that campaign was coinciding with the height of protests against police brutality and against the way that police respond to communities of color. It was very clear and has been clear, I think, over the last 4 years that President Trump is essentially an opponent of activists who are against systemic racism and who critique law enforcement and critique the ways that the American government responds to communities of color. Yet that message was really flipped upside down, if not totally negated, on Wednesday when we were able to see there was absolutely no law and order in place. There was no real strong law enforcement response to, again, what was a threat to national security and to the safety of not just Congress people and senators.
You're listening to the best of WURD Radio.
And so it just in our reporting, in talking to not just activists, but listening to what President-elect Joe Biden has said and talking with other folks who are familiar with the situation, it's very clear that President Trump's law and order message, his mantra, was largely empty and only really applies to one group of people.
And let's talk about what Joe Biden said, because I thought it was interesting, and for me it was uplifting to hear him say talk about that difference. What did Joe Biden say about the difference between how these protesters, or these really insurrectionists, rioters, were treated as compared to those calling for justice for Black lives? What did Biden say?
President-elect Biden referred to the law enforcement response on Wednesday as, quote, a clear failure to carry out equal justice, end quote. And I think if you talk to a number of leaders and even just members of communities of color who have ever engaged with police officers, this is something that folks have been saying, I think, for hundreds of years, as it relates to the relationship between people of color, particularly African Americans, and police officers in the ways that we are treated. Even those of us in political press who spend time on Capitol Hill, we find ourselves being over-policed by Hill Police and over-monitored by Hill Police. So it was just really remarkable to see, again, the lack of a response here to what I said before was a domestic terror threat. But the president-elect also said, which was, I think, the kicker quote here from yesterday, quote, "No one can tell me that if that had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesters, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently." And that's really what this story that I and my colleagues have written is getting at. It's just that when you're talking about the ability to exercise your right to protest and express yourself and your discontent with the direction of this country, what people have been asking for in communities of color is just that they be treated equally and given the space to express themselves. But we know, of course, that has not been the case historically.
Yeah. We're talking with Maya King. She is a Campaign 2020 reporting fellow at Politico about a story from Politico called The Racial Contradictions of Trump's Law and Order Mantra. So you talked to a number of elected officials about what happened. And my question is, what are they talking about doing as a result of what happened? And how are they talking about bringing about change?
Well, a growing number of Democrats are interested now in bringing forth articles of impeachment and again impeaching the president. We know that Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, does have the votes to do that and has said publicly that if the president's cabinet does not act, that she very well may bring forth articles of impeachment. However, the problem with that is the fact that there are only 12 days left in this presidency until Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do officially come into their term. So it's tricky, and there are a number of political and even legal ramifications in actually removing this president from office so soon. However, it's very clear that Democrats and a growing number of Republicans are looking for some kind of way to not just signal that they're extremely disappointed in the way that Trump has handled the situation, but try to find a way to bring forth, some level of, I don't think punishment is the right word, but to respond in a way that limits his power, because I think there's also just a growing concern that even though President Trump only has less than 2 weeks left in office, that he really still has room to act irrationally and endanger the lives of the American people.
That's Maya King. She's a Campaign 2020 reporting fellow at Politico. The latest from Politico on this, and Maya King was a contributor to it, the racial contradictions of Trump's law and order mantra. You can read that at Politico.com. Maya King, thank you so much for joining us this morning on WURD.
Don't miss Wake Up with Word. Weekdays 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. right here on WURD Radio. You've been listening to the best of WURD Radio.
WURD Radio is independent black media. And we're able to stay independent because of our forward movement and members like you.
Treat yourself to the treat of buying a WURD membership. It's less than a quarter a day. That's less than a bag of chips. And we really, truly need to keep this platform going so that we can stay connected as we reimagine our community in 2021.
Start or renew your forward membership today at wordradio.com/forward or call 215-425-7875. WURD Radio. Independent black media.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
With everything going on, there may be times you feel like you can't handle it all. Journaling, meditating, and talking with friends and family can help you feel more grounded and better able to cope. Your kids are also going through a lot of new experiences, and simply talking with them about their feelings can be quite powerful.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations. Because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Are you tired of eating the same thing day after day? Is ordering takeout starting to get a little old? If so, then give Premium Nutrition Meals a try. With Premium Nutrition Meals, you get to select new entrees each week from several different menus, all chef-crafted, freshly prepared, and delivered right to your door. Just go to premiumnutritionmeals.com to order to earn rewards today. WURD listeners receive $10 off orders of 6 meals or more. Enter code PREMIUMWURD at checkout.
Keeping you informed. As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week.
Monday, February 1st, at 2 locations, SEPTA of 69th Street, 6901 Market Street in Upper Darby from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m., and then at noon at Salem Baptist Church, 2741 Woodland Road in Abington. And Tuesday, February 2nd, 12 noon till 8 p.m. at Christian Stronghold Baptist Church, 4701 Lancaster Avenue in Philadelphia.
Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.